Ready, Chair.
Great. I'll now call to order the Planning Advisory Committee meeting May 14th, 2026. Today we acknowledge that this is a sacred land on which Smiths Falls is now located and has been the site of human activity for over 10,000 years and is rich in Indigenous history. We are grateful to the Algonquin ancestors who cared for the land and the water in order that we might meet here today. We are also grateful to the Algonquin people for their contribution in the making of the Rideau Canal, which runs through Smiths Falls. We are mindful of broken promises and the need to reconcile with all of our relations. Together, may we care for this land and each other, drawing on the strength of our mutual history of nation building through peace and friendship, being mindful of generations to come. I'm Jacqueline Grimes, the chair of the Planning Advisory Committee, and I will now take attendance of committee members. Councillor Jay Brennan.
Present.
Councillor Stephen Robinson.
Present.
Mary Ramig.
Present.
We have a small change to the agenda. Number 2 in the public meeting report, PAC 26-06, needs to be moved to the priorities issue number 6. So with that, can I have a motion for the approval of the agenda? Jay, seconded by Stephen. All in favor? Carried. Adoption of minutes, Planning Advisory Committee meeting April 9th, 2026.
Karen? Yeah, I just a small amendment to the minutes.
Okay.
I was present, but I was not remote on the 9th of April.
Okay, great. Can we have a motion to accept? Motion, Stephen moved by, seconded by Stephen. Okay, all in favor? Okay. Disclosure of any monetary interests. All right, moving on to the public meeting. We will now open the public meeting portion of the Planning Advisory Committee meeting to consider consent application B26-02 for 14-16 Smiths Falls Avenue. The applicant proposes to sever the subject property, municipally known as 14-16 Smiths Falls Avenue. The subject property contains a semi-detached dwelling in common ownership, and the proposed severance would divide the lot along the dividing wall of the existing dwelling to create 2 separate residential lots. This meeting is your opportunity to provide any feedback on this application, and the Planning Advisory Committee welcomes any questions and comments you may have. We encourage you to do so at this public meeting, as the Planning Act rules suggest that the public's ability to voice objections later in the process may be limited if written or oral comment is not submitted. The Planning Advisory Committee is the approval authority for consent applications. The committee will review the application and any comments or concerns from the public. I will now pass the meeting over to Richard Grant, Planner 1, to report on the notification and summary of the consent application for 14-16 Smiths Falls Avenue. Following his presentation, we will open the floor to comments from the public. The applicant or their agent will also have an opportunity to address any concerns brought to the floor by the public.
Okay.
Richard.
So we received a request for severance in April to sever the subject property at 14-16 Smith Falls. The property is approximately 668 meters squared. Existing lot contains a semi-detached dwelling, and the proposal would be to create 2 lots divided along the common shared wall, being approximately 334 meters squared. The purpose is just to formalize the existing division so that each unit is its own lot. Here we can see a key map of the proposed lot severance. And here we can see a property severance sketch just for reference. And here we can see the site visit photos, the front and the back of the subject property. And you can see the chain link fence sort of like demarcating where the lot is divided directly in half. Okay, so we received agency feedback from Public Works and our chief building official. Public Works did not have any objections, and they noted that there are separate sourcing existing for water and wastewater. And our chief building official did not have any objections. So in terms of evaluation, we looked at the PPS. And PPS broadly states that the existing development pattern is supported by existing services, so it avoids any land use conflict, so there's no real issue with the PPS. In terms of the official plan for residential policies, The proposal is a technical severance only, so there's no change in land use. We're looking at infrastructure. The severance does not increase units or servicing demand, and requires no infrastructure upgrades, so there's no real impact there on servicing capacity. In terms of our zoning review, they both severed and retained lots meet the minimum lot area and lot frontage requirements, so there's no relief required for this severance. And so here are the staff recommendations to just complete the land severance survey and deed requirements, provide copies of the property survey, pay any outstanding taxes, and confirm municipal servicing and confirm zoning compliance. So these are pretty standard requirements for a lot severance.
We will now hear from the applicants for any additional information or presentation as it relates to the application. Nothing to add? Okay, thank you. We can now hear from any members of the public, but there are none. So I will now ask if there's any questions or comments from committee members.
I might as well say something.
Okay.
This is just something that we do on a sort of regular basis with some properties in town. So I have no problem endorsing this at all.
Okay, great. Any other comment? All right. The committee is tasked with making a decision on the proposed consent application. If the committee is ready to do so, I will now entertain a motion for recommendation to council.
Sure.
Okay.
I'll move it.
So we're moving that the Planning Advisory Committee approve consent application B26-02, which proposes to sever the subject property municipally known as 14-16 Smiths Falls Avenue by dividing the lot line along the dividing wall of the existing semi-detached dwelling to create two separate residential lots subject to the following conditions as listed in the staff report. Moved by Mary, seconded by Stephen. All in favor? Carried. Thank you for attending and participating in the planning process for consent application B26-02, 14-16 Smiths Falls Avenue. Anyone requiring further notice regarding this application is asked to leave their full name and mailing or email address on the sign-in sheet located at the table by the door, or contact Planner One or the planning clerk via phone or email on the town website. Appeal rights as prescribed by the Planning Act will be outlined in the notice of decision. If you have any questions on the application or the process, I invite you to contact Planner One or the planning clerk. This concludes the public meeting portion of the Planning Advisory Committee meeting. We'll now move on to the next agenda item.
Okay.
Priority issues. Report PAC
Presentation. So Carl will have this thing.
-2606 site plan review for Main and George Street. I will pass that over to Carl.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I'm bringing forward for committee's review and consideration a site plan application that we've recently received. I'd also like to welcome Zayed Hassan. He's the agent representing Hammer and Nails, the developers, and he can certainly, if there's questions that about the development that I don't have an answer to, I will, through you, Madam Chair, I will respectfully defer to him. So a site plan application, of course, is a little bit different than most of the applications this committee sees. It is more of a technical exercise. We're reviewing design, various engineering components, landscaping, and so on to sort of to ensure that a development is compatible within its neighborhood context and addresses all of those development conditions to ensure that it fits in, it doesn't impact services, abutting properties, and so on. So you'll recall a couple of years ago there was a zoning amendment application considered for this property. There is it's sort of an amalgamation of several properties that happened a few years ago. There's certainly the abandoned row houses at the corner of Main and George, and a couple of others comprising 5 total properties, about half an acre in size. They've been amalgamated by the property owner. And a few years ago, they obtained zoning approval to construct a 36-unit plus 2 commercial unit mixed-use building at the corner of Main and George. So it'd be 5 stories facing Main, then stepping down a little bit to George Street. So as part of that zoning approval, they proposed an increase in density above and beyond what the zoning bylaw can normally allow. So council entered into what was called under the previous Planning Act regime a density bonusing. So in that case, they're proposing 9 of the units be affordable. So that's something that we're managing with them separately through a separate process. But what council approved was something that a unique little tool in the Planning Act called a holding zone, meaning the development was supported in principle, but development can't proceed until conditions established by council are met. And in this case, one of the conditions was a site plan approval to administer certain design provisions and align the development along with the downtown core design guidelines. And the other is the holding zone approval. Sorry, not the holding, the affordability agreement. So the affordability agreement would be presented to council when it's ready, and a site plan application would be approved by staff with the advice and feedback of the planning advisory committee. So once these conditions are established, then council considers a further zoning amendment to lift the holding provision. So that will come whenever that's ready. So the zoning, as noted in the report, it allows the intensity and the form of the development that's requested. You'll see that there's a number of performance standards that were considered by the planning committee and council at the time. And all of those reflect the fact that this is a fairly constrained lot. So a lot of what we see here is just games at inches, making sure that there's enough parking that is located properly and everything. So the site plan control application that's before you this evening represents the development that's essentially the same as what was presented to council a couple of years ago. It looks the same broader format, but now there's more of the details that we'd expect to see in a site plan application. So as part of that process, it does undergo a technical review. We've reviewed it in-house within the planning division, but have also circulated it to a number of other departments and agencies within and outside of Town Hall. And these are technical agencies. So actually this week we've received some comments from the fire department and from Hydro One that we'll share with the applicants and sort of work together. So there may be revisions there. But the terms of reference for the Planning Advisory Committee also gives the committee the opportunity to review site plan submissions and provide general feedback, ask questions. So in this case, we invite staff specifically to comment on aspects of site design and compatibility. So certain things like grading, stormwater management, servicing, all of that, those details are typically reviewed by our engineering staff, either in-house or peer reviewed. So just to sort of guide the conversation and our own assessment at the staff end, we've just got a couple of certainly sort of high-level comments, and certainly we'll look for the committee's concurrence or anything additional. One thing we note that as a significant development sort of on top of the hill, we've been looking to, for the beginning of the process, we've been looking through the design provisions to mitigate any impacts on abutting property owners. So that's why there's a building height at 5 stories on Main Street in an area that's within the downtown core designation of our official plan, but we've been looking for the development to sort of step down on George Street. So the portion that's facing George Street is lower. It has less of a visual profile or shadow over the house that's over there. So ultimately the goal is reducing the visual massing and impact. So certainly any PAC suggestions as to design enhancements would be welcomed. We note that the property is going to really front on Main Street, but then the rear and parking would be along William Street on the other end. And William Street is a collector road and as designated in our official plan. So certainly from a design perspective, we wouldn't want just a sort of a parking facade along that collector street. So we have the original proposal calls for a little bit of landscaping along the front there, but certainly from our perspective, we'd be looking at sort of enhancing that, potentially screening the impacts from housing across the road and around there, and just managing the impacts and sort of creating a nice gateway from that parking area as best we can. The exterior facade treatment of commercial units along Main Street West, the elevations, we're recommending and asking for additional detail to demonstrate compliance with the downtown core design guidelines, which supports a traditional style of development of high quality materials. We're also through comment and review, we're working with the applicants in assessing opportunities for benches and street furniture. That's something we often look for in higher density or mixed use development on collector roads to create a little bit more of a softer impact and enhance the streetscape. I would like to draw for the committee's attention a very innovative and kind of a unique way of managing parking on the site, and that is the one way in, one way out. So what you'll see on the site plan, that the parking area is proposed to be accessed from Main Street with a single lane actually going under or through the building. It would be a sort of an arched tunnel there into the parking area, and then out that one way on William Street on the other end. So that's an approach that's been vetted in principle by our Public Works Department, but would help to manage traffic impacts a little bit throughout the broader area. So that was presented through the zoning, and I'm happy to see that that's carrying through with the development here. So I'll pause here, and I think you have the site plans and some of the details, and certainly if there's any feedback or discussion from the committee that myself or Mr. Hassan can speak to, we welcome that conversation. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay. Any questions? Jay?
Yeah, I this is very familiar, of course, and I think this was a year or two ago. One of the issues that we had at the time to do with William Street, there was a house there. Is that house still going to be demolished? I don't think it has been, has it?
It has not been demolished, but the site plan would call for that house to be removed, and that's where some of the parking would go.
Yeah, and so looking at the drawings that you provided, I like the idea of the one way in, the one way out, and then some sort of barrier for the people on William Street, so it doesn't look like there's just a parking lot there. And so I like that. The other question I had was looking at the design here, there seems to be, like, from the end of the where the development is to William Street, those are residences in there?
Along George Street?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so I would assume there would be
Sorry, Jay, where are you pointing on, George? The 1, 2, 3, 4? Is that what you mean? The residence?
no, well, from 1 until William Street
Okay.
to the going left.
Yeah.
So like those are homes there,
Yes.
which I confirm. So on the back, on their backyard. So hopefully there's some sort of mitigation between their backyard and the parking garage.
Yes. So through you, Madam Chair, what we would normally look for is at least a 6-foot tall solid board fence to mitigate to shield from headlights and mitigate that impact.
Okay. No, I support the development as I did before, and I trust that I have a feeling that the applicant's going to be very open to, especially the affordable part of it, as they were, a couple of years ago. So, and the vegetation and that sort of thing on the streetscape is very important, as we know. So, no, that's great development. The only other question I have is, when can we expect to see some action? Because that has been a derelict building for almost as long as I can remember, and people, I think, will be pleased to see some action on it, and some downtown housing as well, and a little commercial.
So through you, Madam Chair, I'd invite Mr. Hassan to speak to that. He can give a better answer than I could.
Thank you, Carl, and thank you, Councillor Jay, and thank you, Madam Chair. It's a pleasure meeting all of you today. I'm Ziad Hassan. I'm the development manager and the applicant on behalf of the client, Hammer and Nail Developments. We just got retained on this project in March this year, and we submitted the application on April 9 for the site plan control. Definitely, like in hearing you, Councilor Joy, our plan for construction, like we are working to get the site plan approval in place in this summer, and working with the town in the building permit package, aiming to have a building permit in hand and shovel ready by the fall, by November this year. Um, I definitely understand the requirement for the screening and the buffering between this location of the parking lot and the backyards. This is something we will definitely include in our detailed design. And in terms of the planting and whatever the facade is going to be in William, the requirement is going to be accumulated as part of the requirement. And Carl, feel free to discuss conditions and the site plan agreement registration in that regards. And yeah, again, it's my first project in Smith Falls, and it's a pleasure working with all of you. And yeah, and I'm happy to answer any additional questions. Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Any other thoughts, comments, Mary?
So I was just, basically it's just a comment. I know that you said you got comments from the fighter. I just basically want to highlight that if they didn't comment specifically, just I'd be interested in making sure that they have reviewed the one-way in. I'm more concerned about the one-way in, one-way out, it being a fire route access, and making sure that there's enough room for the appropriate vehicle to get in through that fire route if it's needed. So that's my biggest concern. Otherwise, I'm generally supportive of the development. I don't have any other concerns.
Mary, what you've described is exactly what the fire department and myself and what the applicants will be working with over the next little while to assess that. The height and the clearance is height and the clearance, of course, we'll work through. Can it get through there, or can there be some other way of getting in and out? We'll work. It may necessitate a meeting between our fire staff and the applicants, but that's a conversation, and that's something that we would be working through subsequent drafts of the site plan.
Okay, great. Do you have something?
Yeah.
Okay.
Thanks. Since Jay already stole my question, but when you were going to start, I'm happy to hear that you would hopefully be shovel ready by fall. And I really hope that happens, because if my memory serves me correctly, 2 years ago, that was exactly the same response that we got.
Yeah.
It was going to be later that year, and it didn't happen. So I look forward to the development. It's an eyesore, and I hope something moves as quickly as it can. That's all.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Councillor. And yeah, that's our plan now. And we have good momentum. Like we were retaining this file in March, we submitted the application in April. Like we just took 3 weeks to put it in. The client as well motivated to get this up and running is going to be, a great intensification in this downtown core, rental market, and additional beautiful development in Smithville. That's our plan.
Carl, do you need anything else from us?
No, I think if there's if the committee has any further questions or feedback or comments, I'd certainly welcome them. And further to Councillor Brennan's comment, another thing we are working on is didn't detail it in the report, but as always, we work on landscaping details. Certainly, if there is an opportunity for enhanced planting, especially along Main Street in his example, that's something we work out with the Public Works Department. We know we have some power lines there, so those are the sort of routine details we work through, the species selection and ultimately identifying ways to sort of enhance our tree canopy while supporting intensification.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Right. Moving on to survey requirements, just to discuss the motion that was passed in 2024. That the Planning and Advisory Committee hereby directs planning staff to proceed with the final consent approval where a survey prepared to fulfill the conditions of consent demonstrates measurements variations of 10% or less from the decision of the provisionally approved by the committee. Just so that's fresh on our brains. All right, project updates? There are none. Roundtable? None. Next meeting, Thursday, June 11th, 2026. Can I have a motion to adjourn? Stephen, seconded by Jay. Carried. Thank you.